Hello everybody and welcome back to Wappelville. I'm just getting things set up here. What we're going to do is a little bit of combo things. We're going to do some marble unbasing. We're going to do some non-metallic metal here, kind of on the shiny side. I think we're going to do some freehand on our cloak here. So what I'm going to do is just sort of get rid of some of these elements here, and the chat may or may not work. It's just everything's been kind of crazy with that so far this week. I'm going to just see if it will actually work here. So we've got this little reference picture right here. Let's make that bigger. What we've got on that robe, that's something I want to try and put on this over here. We'll see if it happens. I will try to match that as close as I can. Obviously, you have some difference in the sculpts here. This is just some artwork that I found, not really from GW. Same with these other references that are down in the left and the right hand corners there. They're not actually GW stuff. Might be from, I think it's probably from a Lord of the Rings video game, something like that. Now we've got the brightness down, and I'm just gonna wait and see if the chat stuff comes up. And what we'll do is we'll reduce the size of that guy. What we'll do is take him off the base first. This is just a piece of Sculpey. There's really nothing super fancy with this. We're also just gonna stick with some basics here. The Reaper Clear and liner paints, and we've got some of the GW. What is it, contrast paints there? We'll go with those. What we're going to do is we'll take some of that brown liner here. Reason I just love the liner paints is it's kind of a no fuss, no muss. You can just work with water. You don't need any special mediums or anything like that. And what we're just going to do is slam right in here and take away as much of the white as we can. You can prime this if you want, but Sculpey is a pretty absorbent material, so you don't necessarily have to prime it. Now at a certain point here, if I don't see the chat activating, because I seem to be getting some angry messages here from YouTube or whatever about that, when this is drying or whatever, when I stick the guy on there, I'll see if I can get the chat going again. So this is blue liner right here. All I want to do is get that covered right now. Get it away from white, like so. Don't mind if that stuff mixes together, because what I want to do is have sort of a interesting dark blue marble here. So we're just going to leave this go right now. Now, well, it seems like it is working. So, hey James, how's it going? James meets James. I'm going to make this bigger so that I can see it. And what we'll do is we'll let this dry just a touch here. But what I am going to do is find my miniature here. And what I'll do is I'm just going to throw some paint down here. Because once I glue them on there, it's going to be really tough to get stuff down in there. And this is just sort of that a little bit of initial glaze that we like to do with the liner paints here. That's all this is. Just going to throw this on here. Just water. But when you're using the clear and liner paints, all it really just takes is some water. And what I'll do is I think I've got some makeup sponges sitting around here. These are nothing special. Got these off of Amazon. Pennies on the dollar. And what are we going to do? We're just going to wipe some of this away. And as we're waiting for our base to dry, we're just going to hit... let's get a little more water into this. I can even throw a little bit of clear blue into this. Why not? Why not? Maybe even a little bit more of the clear blue. They work really well with the liner paints. And this time I'm not going to take the paint away like I did. I guess that's hair. Guess this guy's got some long hair. Yeah, just get the bottom of this. These are the areas that'll be really, really hard to reach. And there. I'll just stop right there. We're going to set him aside. And you can see the base is already starting to dry. Now it's hot down there. Let's see. 20, between 25 and 30 degrees, I guess, something like that. I had to switch from my Fahrenheit to my Celsius system there. And you can see what I'm just going to do is throw in. I didn't want this to dry completely because I wanted to be able to mix a little bit here. I'm going to take some of the paint out of this and we will sort of scumble and blend this together. This is just a real quick sort of a marble thing going on. Hey Josh, how's it going? Sorry I missed the Styrene Syndicate hangout again. Actually, well, technically it's been our anniversary for 2.5 hours. So that's, yeah, coming up not that many hours from now. Yeah, next year is the big one. That's number 20. This is the not quite big one yet at 19. There. Again, while that dries a little bit, and this is maggot white, and that's the usual maiden flesh over there. We're going to go in here. We're going to try and find ourselves a few lighter elements. Some are going to be more towards the blue. What I'd like to maybe do with some of these guys is some kind of water action. And just, I'm going to do a couple more brush strokes here. And now I'll show you something. This is the last of my, I think I have something like 13, 14, 12, 13 Golden Demon trophies, but I only have, this is the last of the Golden Demon miniatures here. And that is Prince Imrahil. Hey, Waleed, holy smokes. Ah, I bet you are doing some late night shifts there. So I'm going to turn down the brightness even more. There we go. So I can see, this is some basic freehand. You can see we got some non-metallic metal, but this is circa long time ago. We'll just call it that. And this is a long time ago. Holy smokes. Yeah, I'm maybe 2010, 2011, something like that. So we've got plenty more, and Waleed is actually going to be seeing these Knights of Dol Amroth, plus my Kandish army, plus my Harad army. This is actually what I'm working for on the Patreon page. That's scrolling across the bottom there. It's one of my newest series that we're working on. That's the color test figure. And the Dol Amroth Knights, actually I was going to do an army painting series on them. They're going to be in oils, like my Morgul Knights here. Because as you can see, there's plenty of opportunity for all kinds of blends here on the robes and on the banners and all kinds of non-metallic metal things. And I'm going to go back to the chat here. Oh, thanks, Josh. Much appreciated. Yeah, sometimes those things just can really sneak up on you. And next thing you know, it's, oh yeah, it's December 21st again. Kind of happens that way once a year. Surprise, surprise. Ah, against the Iron Hills, so yeah, that's right, you printed out 50 chariots, didn't you, for your dwarves? So I'm going to have to make lots of Kandish chariots. Actually, I will, because a bunch of Kandish cavalry just showed up in the mail. So I've got, I think, maybe 8 or 9 Kandish infantry. I've got 6 cav. And now I've got to make myself, gotta make the rest. Gotta do the cavalry, gotta do those chariots. Probably make 4 of those or something, at least, because that's what I used to have. And you can see we're putting a hint of those sort of veins that come through this. We're not getting anything too bright just yet. I'm going to kind of save that. Using the same old brush here, nothing fancy. And you can see how we play on one side of that vein to make that one side lighter. In that container that I just reached into, that's just nothing but water. I know the last one that I did with the Marvel Crisis Protocol figure, we were screwing around with two different mediums on that. We had the GSW, Green Stuff World Master Medium, and then we also had the Lamian Medium. We found out that one was definitely thicker than the other. The GSW medium tended to work really, really nice in the beginning as we were doing some of those initial glazes. So see what we're doing here? We're just easy peasy creating some of these veins. I just want to get this base out of the way so I can stick that figure on there and get going with that as fast as possible. And just because you've got these lighter lines, it doesn't mean we can't knock those down. The reason I focused the pattern over here is all of this, mostly, it's going to be covered by, well, the guy. And like I said, we can work a couple different ways here. Now we're just grabbing some of that clear phthalo blue. We'll hold it this way and see we can glaze in a touch of that. We can even do something like this. We added a touch of the maggot white there to make it a little more opaque. But this is what I really enjoy about the clear and liner paints, is that you can do what's tantamount to dry glazes because you're not really using a lot of water. The paint itself is somewhat translucent but super high pigment. That means you can do a bunch more things with those than you might think you could. So we'll just fill in some dark areas here in the veins of our marble. And that's that. So as we just let this dry a little bit, we'll glue our Knight of Dol Amroth on there. Wherever he went, he's over here. And let's not smash into the palette camera. We'll just, yeah, he can go right there now. Let's find ourselves a little bit of glue. And I will give him a few seconds to sit there just so he doesn't swing around and twirl around as we're working on him. Now again, there's no primer on here. If I wanted to prime it, I would just use my same old Badger Stynylrez primer. That's what's on here. I'm going to find you a decent container that you can read. So as always, Badger Stynylrez. You can wash it on there if you wanted to. Or brush it on. Sorry, not, well, you could wash it on too, I guess. But you can just brush that stuff on there. So yeah, we're going to let him sit there for a little bit. Just let him dry. Actually, this was the very first army painting series that I did. This was my Easterlings right here. Boy, did I have fun with these guys. This was just like we're painting this, but the Reaper clear and liner paint. So you can see there's the clear blue right here, clear red, clear yellow. But you can see in our metals here, there's stuff that's being reflected. So we got blue reflected onto here, blue reflected onto here. Well, when we go to do this Knight of Dol Amroth, we basically have blue on blue, right? Because this is, I mean, as you look at those pictures down in the two corners, it's sort of that shiny, more chrome type metal. We don't have the advantage of this automatic sort of contrast between our metals and, say, the flag here, this tassel, the blanket. We don't have that advantage. So how do we manage that? Well, we got to kind of find out here. Now, if you look at Imrahil, even at this stage, see how there's some little bit of a purple in here? So we're probably going to do some of that. You see we've got some almost a tan type color in here. Now down here I did actually use some weathering powders to do some dust. Remember the water stuff that I was telling you about? This is something that I might try and do with the rest of the army. I don't know. We'll see. But Imrahil, boy, he's quite the beast. When I looked at what he does, he basically makes most of the army, well, fight 5 and also he counts as a banner, but I think with a range of 12 inches or something insane like that. Now he costs a whole bunch of points. I think only say Sauron. No, well maybe Saruman costs more. Sauron certainly costs more. Aragorn probably costs more. But Imrahil's one of the more expensive heroes in the game, points wise. As Waleed already knows, when I tried to create I think it was a 750 point Dol Amroth army I had, all of a sudden I spent 400 some odd points and all I had was some cavalry guys, and that was it. Now I'm going to turn my brightness back up here. And all we're doing, preliminary glazes, and you can see it has a little hint of that purple in it because we have to just find ourselves a few ways of getting some easy contrast in here. I will grab a smidge of brown liner here for that glove, and then we're just gonna go like so. Use our finger, wipe some of that away, and then just leave it. Now I will grab a touch of my blue here. I'm just going to blast into this now. Remember, this is that sort of shaded base coat phase, initial glazing. When you see the tutorial videos, usually chapter 1, and that's not chapter 1 in the book of Wappel, that's just chapter 1 of the video, tends to be initial glazes and shaded base coat. Now, this is something that veterans of the Patreon page will recognize, this using the fingers, sponges, taking some things away like that. I'm going to throw in a little bit of a darker area here just for our skin tones. Make sure we get some shadows in there. Now, I could have done this with contrast paint. I got Leviathan blue here. I could have used that. It's a whole bunch of different options. But what I'm going to do now is get some of that maiden flesh here. Let's lighten up some areas on the side of our base. And I'm going to look over for the outcast. He's back. Oh, thanks. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Happy holidays to you guys. I think both of us will be doing some more live episodes before Christmas. What the heck is today? It's basically Saturday. Ooh, the 21st, 23rd would be a Monday. So maybe the 23rd I'll try and do one. I think, depending on what happens, Kathy might be doing a Christmas Eve one. It really depends if someone wants us to be at their house or something like that. That could change. We'll see. But we're just right here getting a few lights on our base. This is not a dry brush at all. The brush has plenty of paint in it. But what we are doing is see how we get our hands. Real gentle on the brush here. Just kind of cradling the brush, and we're just swiping across at an angle. That's the great thing about the Sculpey bases. Get the chunk of the old-fashioned white Sculpey, not the gray extra firm that we use for the rollers. But you can see when you break this and just carve it tiny little bit, you just get all kinds of natural looking stone, all kinds of natural stone appearance to it. Here, let's get a quick little reference of reflected light there. Oh, what the heck? Let's start to get some lighter stuff here on his wings. Now the other thing too, and like I said, people that have seen me do these videos before, they know that with something like Freehand, that is actually just part of the beginning. It's actually part of that whole shaded base coat process. Because I'll see people all the time that they'll paint that cloak, paint it. They have all this work in it. It looks the way they want it. And then they basically do not do their freehand because They don't want to, as I can't make air quotes, but imagine they're there. They don't want to ruin it, so they don't do it. They don't do anything. What if you were to start out with the freehand? Then you'd know if you actually want it. If you don't want it, it's real easy to get rid of because you're still in that beginning phase. Now notice, see how much warmer this is? And following the other little principle that we like to do, if a color goes somewhere, it must go everywhere. So we're throwing this here. And what we're just gonna take some real quick here. This is your phthalo blue, some of that clear blue. Mix this up here, maybe a little more. Now this is the cloaks for these guys, sort of a cobalt blue. Not really, an ultramarine blue is kind of on the reddish side. Cobalt blue is kind of on the cusp of many things as far as blue goes. Speaking of blue, let's rock some of this on his shield here. Yeah, the Knights of Dol Amroth actually, if I need to let something dry, I'll show you. I think I have 9 cavalry figures. I think I've got a dozen, no, I've got 9, actually ironically 9 infantry. Got some banners. Obviously I still have Imrahil too. We've got him. And now what I actually have is a bunch of fiefdoms to go with them. So some of the heroes, the Forlong, the fat guy, and I mean, that's his name. That's not making fun of nothing. That's the guy's name. And then there's the basically what look like sort of Highland guys wearing kilts. So, hey, that's going to be an interesting tartan lesson to do. It's all going to be in blue like this. There's some ranger figures. They're mostly in cloaks, which, well, that means, guess what? More freehand. So you can see we're just quickly, rapidly building this up. Not sweating. Oh, it's Mr. Interesting. How's it going? Yeah, we're just going to hit this with, see, we're going to make sure we reflect a little bit of blue onto some of our metals here. But at the same time, not getting too crazy about shading on this cloak because we have to figure out, well, does that freehand, is it going to work the way I think it's going to work? Because with freehand, well, even stuff like that, the plaid, the tartan, and your mind, it's sensational. It's got to work. You maybe even try it out on a piece of paper, something like that. And you say, oh, it works there because it's fantastic. But it's flat, and B, it's probably 2 to 3 times the size of what you need. So again, see, that's just a blue liner in there. It's already sort of a nice little base for this. Already a nifty little base. We are going to get some blue here because we have to reflect our marble, don't we? It's supposed to be reflective. That's why we're doing this. And it's really weird, believe me, having blue down here on this part of the sword. It's usually the other way around. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to mess around with this particular little challenge right here. Now let's use some of the maggot white here. We'll continue this process of finding our lights. Oh, let's see. First Last is in the house. Yeah, I picked up a box of Steel Legion from a local game store, and they are. Yeah, they're the gigantic. I think Kathy has some of those. Was it Parabellum? I think is the name of the company, right? Parabellum Miniatures, I think. I think Kathy had some of the cavalry that she was going to pin on her stream, and I saw those things, and they were monstrous. I was assembling Ossiarch cavalry during the week, and those tower over the Ossiarch cavalry. Yeah, I've been trying to assemble as much of the Ossiarchs as I can too. Well, for more of these live sessions here, and then obviously for more of the army painting videos. And it has now been determined I've been actually shortchanging myself by nearly 100 hours of content. So you sign up for that Army Painter pledge level, as you see that scroll by there, you're actually getting closer to 250 hours. I thought it was 150, but no, it was recalculated by a few folks that took the time to look at timestamps and see what it is, and they said, "Yeah, Jim, you did a little bit more than you thought." Kind of makes sense because there's 16 army painting series that are either done or in progress. There's 28 Dark Sword videos. Oh, and by the way, the Army Painter series, there's 5 episodes in each. And then you've got the on the workbench sessions that are basing. They're sort of a universal thing. In some ways, they're a peek at what it's like to do the commission painting thing, because I'll just take figures that I'm working on and say, look, this is the color scheme. This is how the basing's got to be. Is it what I would do? Not really, but this is what they asked for, so this is what they're going to get. And you can see what we're doing here, starting to go a little bit more. There's some kind of blue there to reflect some things. That's why the metals here, I have to actually go more towards, say, the sky blue and some magentas. Because if I just do those in that same blue, it's going to get awful repetitive, awful quick. And I have to think, look at the linear highlights on those helmets over there. See the lower right-hand corner? That's why I put those there, so that they could be maybe a handy little reference guide for people. And you can see we're just dodging this in here real fast. Now, I've been working with oil paints pretty much all week long. And later on, I'll show you the really nifty Abteilung oils that came in. Was it earlier today? Yeah, it was earlier today. That came in from AK Interactive. Very similar to the oil brushes. We're going to find out just how similar. And I thought, I've been looking for a series to do in oils. There's they're my Rohan Riders I was going to do in oils. But I think this could maybe be fun. There's so much of this army, I could almost do 2 series on it. So I think this will also be part of it, but we'll be doing some oil painting. Right now, I just wanted to stick with the acrylic. Let's see, how come on Twitch? Well, I've spent, let's see, 6 years or so on this platform, and it's taken that long to build it up where it has been. And I don't necessarily know if I have the time to split between the two platforms. Also, YouTube is what I utilize for the Patreon videos too, so there's some synergy there. The XSplit doesn't mind working with YouTube. Sometimes XSplit gets a little crazy with Twitch. And also the other thing too is I can't do these at a regular time. Yeah, I mostly do these things around this time, but the days can switch. And well, let's take last night right around this time. For some inexplicable reason, I don't know if there was maintenance going on, but internet was pretty much down across the entire area. It wasn't long, it was only 5 minutes, maybe 8 minutes tops, but all it takes is 1 second of no internet and boom, there goes your stream. I think the other thing too. Oh yeah, thanks. This is so that's the online game. Okay, yeah, we're gonna try and stick those birdies right on the cloak here. I'm just waiting for that to dry completely well. We just keep building this up here. And you can see what we're doing. It's a little bit like, I remember a Captain America shield from a couple days ago. Now, there may come a time where I do the Twitch thing. I actually do have, I think it's just under Wappelius or something like that. So I do actually have a Twitch thing. I think I actually have 11 followers or 12 followers or something like that. Eventually, I might go with that platform. The one kind of problem, I don't know if it's really a problem or whatever, but I like to use these videos as basically a library. Basically, what the blog was for the longest time. It still is, but obviously now I can do video tutorials. And I like being able to do stuff like this that, well, lets me hang out with folks, but it's pretty darn close to an actual lesson also. So it's more than just hanging out, I guess. Now, I think those are waves. I'm just going to maybe guess that's what those are. Now, these are the older metal sculpts right here. And, yep, Comcast. It's been going on for years. And I only notice it late at night like this because, well, I'm up doing these things, and I just assume because the other reason why I do these streams at this time is that between 1 to 4 a.m. it's a big trench as far as how much use is happening. So bandwidth wise, way less people for obvious reasons. Because sometimes you can have the best internet in the world in your house, but if everybody else is also using the bandwidth, well, that's sometimes a war you're going to lose. So let's see. I'm going to see if I can find. Aha. Yeah, here we go. So this is one of the Forge World Dol Amroth Knights here. And they've got a decent amount of space here, I think, for some freehand. I also wanted to try. There's some that have sort of some knotwork and some patterns on those, and I thought that could be really fun. But you can see how we're starting to build up our lights and darks here. No, actually, like First Last was saying, she does the Twitch thing. She won't be doing it tomorrow because Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday are her usual days. We are hoping, and now I still have to get one more computer to be able to do this and some more cameras and lights. But we actually want to do something that's along the lines of an evening with the Wapples where we're both painting, or maybe we're both just building stuff, and we're just kind of hanging out. It's not necessarily okay like this, where the goal is by the time we're done with this, we have the base painted, we have him painted, we've got freehand, we've got your non-metallic metals, all that kind of fun stuff. Let's just throw a little bit of skin on this guy here, and yellow, red, and off-white make skin. No point in screwing around with flesh tones. You can buy all those skin tones, and the light one is too light, the dark one's too dark or too red. You're better off just kind of mixing your own as you need it. May not seem that way, but ultimately you are just going to be better off that way. Now let's see if I can't work in a few things here that aren't necessarily blue. So what I'm going to do is right in here, same thing on this side, maybe even a bit over here. So not everything is reflecting the blue marble. Let's get a little touch of gold here on the handle of this sword here. Then we're going to dive into some of our brown line or some red, and Let's make ourselves some kind of a glove type color here. And there we go. It's got a little hint of red to it. Sort of unifies that a bit. Not too much in the way of leather here. There's a few straps, and then there's maybe the sides of the shield here that I'm going to hit it with this same brownish color. Something that maybe I can reflect there on my metals. Now, this is all dry. Let's play here with something. Oh, let's see. She tried to post a link to the Twitch channel, but I think YouTube ate the comment. Let's see. Oh, hey. Oh, hey there. Thanks for joining the army, Black's Cleric. Much appreciated. Well, the YouTube stuff, it really, again, it allows me to combine with other stuff. And if I hadn't been doing this for this many years, I probably would put more into that. I think maybe in January I'll try doing a couple of test streams just to see what happens. Actually, the one advantage of that is that I might be able to do some stealth streams because there's not that many people following. And when you're just trying things out, pretty much everything just kind of goes haywire, especially when you are not familiar with it. And there's nothing worse than things going haywire when you've got people watching. So I think what I can do is just sort of do a couple of Twitch streams there, and maybe nobody even sees them. But that's okay because my first couple of YouTube lives were that way because I had absolutely no idea. Heck, I might even try doing some Facebook lives again. I can see how we're lightening this up. We're still using the bigger brush. We are not digging into anything small yet. Now you can see it only takes a few, what are we? 37 minutes into this. Yeah, we thought it would be. Now I cannot attest to if there will be any cognac or smoking jackets being worn or anything like that, but we are sort of reworking the living room area. Kathy's right now, she streams in one corner of that. We're trying to actually turn that into some kind of an area where we could actually, the two of us, could just sort of be at the same table. And maybe all we're doing is just putting stuff together. And we might be talking about TV shows. We have to start The Expanse. I still have to see my Man in the High Castle. What was the other show that we finished? Oh, yeah, the Lucifer. That's right. We finished off that. So who knows? We may be talking about TV shows on that. There's all kinds of fun things that we can do. Now, I'm just going to grab me some sepia liner, a little bit of that yellow, and let's make our picture bigger here. Let's do this. Let's make our guy bigger here. Now there's a big old fold going right down the middle of this. Ideally, this would be a much shallower sort of thing. So what I may do, let's get his head over here. And this is what I mean about doing it as early as possible. So before you panic and go, oh my gosh, that's not right or whatever, there's plenty of wiggle room. Let's get there's a little bit of a U shape that forms there. The wing comes down like this. And right at this point, I'm just going to let this all be much more towards the solid end of things. Now it gets to be equally tricky on the other side. I can also see a little bit of knotwork stuff. So maybe we have that going down the center too. But before we do that, we have to do some kind of matching golden goose. Now obviously it's probably just maybe the image makes it look a little more gold, but let's get the just here. And the nice thing is I can adjust the size of these things. I can make changes because we did this early on. I didn't sit there and shade and do all this stuff on his robe only to find that, oh no, maybe I didn't want that there at all, or maybe that's just too big, that's too small. This robe is also a little bit stretched, so I think I need to make this guy a little bit taller than this guy. They also need some shoulders here, and I might need to even change it around a little bit just to adapt to this figure here, because conveniently that robe right there is pretty much like a flat board, the one that's on the reference picture right there, so kind of a little bit easier to do that. See, maybe we can do some kind of other designs around there. Now I'm getting a glare on my screen, so I need to move this over a bit. Aha, so there is a little bit of a design that sort of attaches these two together. Let's see if we can. And we've been using the big old brush this whole time. Oh, Jackass, did you make the holiday cookies? Oh, thank you very much, Shadow. Much appreciated. Yeah, actually, I wish I could show you on my phone right now. I'll either be doing a blog post or something like that, because we did take a bunch of pictures. I think we actually made more cookies this year than we've made any other year. We might have made 100 cookies. And there is everything. I made tanks from 4 different countries, planes from 3 different countries. We did snowmen and candles and bells and bears, and of course Christmas bats, Christmas cats, Christmas sharks. I mean, all the usual traditional holiday things. Let's get a little bit of, just a touch of our yellows in there too. Just a touch. We probably be using, again, a little bit more of the maiden flesh in there. I'm also going to throw a little touch of it into here too, even though this is not really supposed to be gold, but I want to keep that theme kind of consistent there. So let's take a little bit of our brown liner here, and we're going to do something like this. So we're knocking this down, especially here, because we have to remind ourselves, yeah, there's folds here. We kind of need some shadows. So by doing this right away, you can say I don't have to worry about screwing around with any kind of shading. Oh yes, I did send you some of those cookie pictures. Yeah, Jack, it was really a lot of fun, because what was it, last year? Now I'm gonna reduce this down real quick here. We discovered that the nutmeg log recipe was way easier to cut cookies with than the gingerbread recipe. So I think last year was the first year we made just regular cookies using that particular dough, and it works really well for when I basically am sculpting my own cookies. Because hey, why not? Okay, I'm gonna grab some of that. We need reflected light over here, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna throw some of that now. Gonna throw just a hint of red into that, and I'm looking to go here, because we have this light to dark, but we need light to dark back to middle tone again. And then if we're gonna do, I could line this robe with some kind of lighter color. Let's try that, because we did it with Imrahil. Let's try it with this one here. So we are gonna grab some of this. We need some separation here, and this just might be enough. Who knows, maybe I can even throw another design on the inside of this too, because we got so much blue here. Yeah, this is better. Remember those changes I was telling you about? Here's some of those changes. just going to grab me some of that maiden flesh. I'm just going to use my thumb as a quick little temporary palette. And look at this. See how I can, it's almost like oil paints. It's very wet into wet. So actually, Blackstick, you might want to check out, if you wanted to, I know we're talking about oils and stuff, the Mountains Men series, that was very much with the Sky Earth, non-metallic, but in oils. And I've been itching to try another army with the oils that has the Sky Earth in it. And these guys, which just in the last few weeks, as Waleed knows, all of a sudden sort of came to the forefront as a project. Because I'd been piling up the evil armies, and they were saying, hey Jim, why don't you play something besides Easterlings and Canned and Harad? And I was looking around, and I had some Dol Amroth figures. Turns out I had way more than I thought I did. And conveniently enough, on December 7th, a whole bunch of Dol Amroth stuff was re-released again. So, and then there's the Forge World Dol Amroth. I had originally wanted to try and do some filming of the process of decorating the cookies, but that just didn't quite work out. Let's just say it was a little too messy of a process, and it took up way too much space. So who knows, maybe an evening with the Wappels by next holiday season will include a special cookie episode. Because, hey, that would be fun. At least I think it would be. So we're getting some reds into here, into our glove. We'll double down on that a bit here. We'll have enough sepia liner in though to keep it from becoming pink. There we are. A little bit lighter edge on our glove. I'm going to say that is probably hair, so let's just give him a little bit of a hair color there while we're at it. I'm going to throw a little more color here on our swans. Notice I just keep working with the larger brush. Have not shifted yet. That's a little bit of maiden flesh, a little bit of the maggot white. And the other reason I didn't get too crazy with the blue on the shield here is because I want to see if I can't do maybe some freehand there too. So again, I think these are just waves here. At least that's sort of the general impression that I get from those. And now let's get these swans here more towards that reddish purple in some places here. Like that. Here, let's do this one. Now, like I said, these older metal sculpts not quite so crisp as the newer Forge World ones. But because of this one had the largest area of his robe like this to let me play around with some potential freehand there. So let me see if I can grab myself a smaller brush here, and let's see what we can do to start to bring out our swans here. How First Last says if I go into Dol Amroth or Dwarves, yeah. So I think, yeah, while he's going with the Iron Hill Dwarves. So let's get some light up here, and what I'll be doing is probably cutting away some of this with my blue. It's going to be a little bit of adding and subtracting. He needs his shoulder here. This is also going to be a bit, what would you say, distorted by the flow of the robe and the folds and such. All right, shoulder here. Draw this wing down. And it seems like there's an awful lot of linear stuff that's going on with the swans here. So I don't want to say outlines, but we'll give the suggestion of outlines to these guys here. So I need to make their necks a little bit longer here. So this is the adjustment that we're making. So we're doing this. And because we didn't spend all kinds of time screwing around with our blue, I can just take this and make a nice little alteration here. So we're making this neck longer. We're making that neck thinner, more delicate. Sometimes it's easier to take away than it is to add. Hey, Chris, how's it going? Yeah, what is it here? 3 in the morning? That's 3:12-ish in the morning. Let's get the darker part of the face in there. And then we'll do the same thing here. Gonna get some dark scatter under to it. Yeah, there's the temptation to make everything lighter, lighter, lighter. But it's that story that I always tell about the non-metallic painting class that I was doing, and just, you could tell somebody was not having an easy time of it. I walked over there, and they just had this look on their face. And said, I'm adding white, and I'm not getting any kind of contrast. And I said, well, just let me grab that miniature for a second. And I put 1 or 2 strokes of darker color. It was a sword blade like this. And all I did was drop some darker stuff on that side. And yeah, all of a sudden, boom, you had instantaneous contrast there. And he said, uh-huh. And then that was it. He just, when you haven't tried something like that before, you haven't run into that, you can't necessarily be too rough on yourself for not just knowing that. So shoulder, again, coming down like this. I might extend out the wings here maybe a little more than what you see on the picture. And it's just a reference. We are not beholden to that. Sometimes we just do what's possible. So again, I know that's taking up a lot of room on screen, but I need to be able to see it. And I think it's actually good for you guys to also be able to see that. So we're doing some lines of feathers here. Now, I would like a few of these guys maybe to be potentially Golden Demon entries. I don't know. I'm doing so many different Lord of the Rings figures, and sadly there's no unit category. There's just Lord of the Rings. That's it. There is no specialty category for it. So I would have to make some choices there. Do I just go with the whole unit of these guys? I'm just going to throw in some eyes here. Because I got to know how light some of this other stuff is before I know how light I can go on this. And I'm going to more stick to the maiden flesh to make this lighter. So let's get him where you can see him here. Now that's going to, ironically enough, I'm going to do a little bit of shading over that. Remember what I did when I took the brown liner and thinned that down? Well, we'll have to do the same. We'll have to do the same thing here because again we have folds. That's the hardest thing with freehand. Cloaks are really handy. They're super tempting. I got this big old surface, yeah. And then you realize, oh, that big old surface is not super even. What I might do here is I'm going to turn the brightness down just a tad there. So maybe you can get a little better idea of what's happening here. Now that's a fold down in there, down into the crevice, so we're not going to get that too light. But you can see we start to shape the wings a little bit more. We shouldn't be screwing around with this forever. Just kind of get it in there. Don't play with it a lot. The enemy of good is always better. It always is. Less is more. You know the drill. You've heard that many times. So there, I'm going to say that's more of a fold there, so we're not going to get that too dark. But you can see the swans here now are a little less on the yellow side. Actually, I'm going to go here. Let me do this a little bit. There. Now there's some stars here. I think even the Minas Tirith flags have some stars on them. There's other reference pictures that I have. It's not a good idea while XSplit is open and while I'm doing one of these to be trying to add images. So we're going to be doing more of these. So we'll add it then. But here, let's get a second. And it's easier, like I said, to sort of put the lighter things in first and then take your darker color and then subtract. It really is, believe it or not, easier to shape these in reverse instead of just going lighter and lighter. Now we've got, this is going to be really difficult because there is a fold that quite literally runs right through this, but there's some interlocking. There's an interlocking design that sort of goes like this. They cross over here. Then it crosses over here, and of course it's crossing over right where there's that stupid fold, but sometimes that's just how it goes. And then we'll just end it off in this kind of a shape. Now we're going to do the same thing that we did on the rest. Just going to hit that with a glaze to knock it down. And then we sort of go back the other way now. And we know this can be light. We know this can sort of be light right here. And then here. And then like we did before, we're going to grab some of our blue here. And we're going to do some quick subtracting here and make that thinner. And if it turns out we don't like it, we can just wipe it out completely. What if it's just too distracting from our swans? What if it's just in a too weird of an area? We don't like it, we just take it away. And again, over here, we're going to take away some of these. The hint of a star there is better than actually drawing out an actual star pattern. I've had it happen before many times over the years where I'm doing some sort of a freehand design and it looks really neat, but it's just rendered too intensely. It's just too bright, too intense, and it's too noticeable. It had to be knocked down. Let's see, do I want to get some more of the... Yeah, I'm going to actually add some more of an orange here. That's the clear red and the clear yellow. Those are going to go together. Get me more towards an orange here. And again, a lot of this may change by the time things reach the end of the process. So we'll make this picture now a little bit smaller here. Hey, Fruity Toots. It's we have found this will be one of our first major subjects for the Optilung oils here. We'll do our Knights of Dol Amroth. That'll probably be series 17. I think I'm on 17. I'm doing 15 and 16 right now. Now I'm just going to get myself a little bit of lighter flesh tone in there, and then we're going to go back later on and we'll get some greens in there too. We're going to work on our swan on the shoulder here. Because I think this one, with all the banners and all of the shields and everything, the Mountains Men and Oils, those were really fun. But there was really zero opportunities for any kind of freehand. The Morgul Knights, again, in oils, really wasn't much in the way of opportunities for freehand. So I think this is going to be a really fun series here for the oils. And I'll mention this too. At no point have I used white, the Maggot White, and the Maiden Flesh. They're very light colors, but they're not white. There will come a time where I actually do snag some white to do some things, but that time is not now. Heck, it's only 3:23. These old metal ones basically don't exist. What you would see, and again, I'll find another one of the Forge World ones here. Yeah, guys that look a little bit more like this. And this is how all their cloaks are, and the swords are a little bit thicker, and all the shields kind of look like this. But yeah, the Forge World Dol Amroth, it's a box of 6 of them. But this, I have no idea how I ended up with, I think, what was it, 3 of the old metal ones like this. And obviously one of them is that banner guy. Now, I suppose eBay or whatever, there might be some. If you live in Europe, it's a whole lot easier to get some of the older Lord of the Rings figures on the secondary market. I found that out as I was looking myself. Oh, miniatures, conversions, and dioramas. Good morning. Yeah, we've been having some fun here, messing around with some freehand. That picture on the left there. Let's see if we can get a little bit of lighter color in some of this now. And like always, the freehand design, you have to get that down as early in the process as you can. It'll make you way less nervous or whatever it is that holds you back from doing freehand. Alright, let's say we didn't like any of that freehand. We spent all of 3 or 4 minutes putting the blue that we did in there. It'd be easy to put it right back in there. Now with your things like this, these armor pieces, again, it would be easier on the forge roll because that's just a cleaner sculpt in this. But you want to think about these chain of lights and darks. So we're doing a chain of lights that goes down his arm there. Now, this, we're going to take the Maggot White, mix it with the blue liner here for the most part. What that's going to do is give us a sort of a grayish blue here. That's a nice little mid-tone. Now we're going to go back into, there's some maiden flesh here. kind of thin down that line. These also need, they're also even going to need some darks in some places. This also needs, and hopefully this shows up here. Okay. So on this plate right here, yeah, we need to get a little bit edge there, but we also have to have something here, because armor, believe it or not, reflects on itself. So if your arm is next to your chest, and both are arm, or well, let's say your arm is red cloth or whatever, well, you better have some red reflected on the chest. Otherwise, what's the magic shield that keeps the red from affecting the color of the armor on the chest plate? And that is only something I found recently just by checking out the Instagram cosplay folks that do actual real armor. That was a major eye opener. So here we need to get see that linear sort of a highlight there. Now let's see if we can get some lighter elements here on these wings. Remember, still in our pocket is white. I haven't used it yet. And I could probably use, say, the Creature Caster, the Pro Acryl white, because that is just so, it covers so well. We've done that in the past. We're building up the blade right here. We're going to do that, but now we need to get some, we need to actually get some pink and some purple in this here, so let's do that now. Here's a little blue for us. I know that just sounds insane, but believe it or not, having pink in your sword blades really helps. I think, yeah, we've got the brightness turned down. There we go. A little touch right there. It's also not a bad color for the end of our glove. Face. Even on our swan here and some of the edges of this. Speaking of those edges, they also need to be knocked down just a bit here. There, that's it. I'm just gonna hit those with a quick little semi-glaze like that. And here on these swans on the shoulders, gonna hit those with some of this. I don't want too much contrast here with these wings on the helmet, because that's gonna affect your metal. Your metal. Oh, thanks very much. Oh, first, yeah, hence the fancy helmet cloak. Yeah, this has got to be a captain right here. What's weird is I actually have a whole bunch of captain figures. They're mostly doing some pretty dramatic stuff. Obviously, the Forge World set has a captain in it, so I don't know. Well, there wasn't going to be a whole bunch of these. Oh, and when you get unhorsed, and if we're going to do all the Dol Amroth cavalry, I was never going to actually have, what, 9 infantry plus the 9 cav. The infantry may just end up, if they get shot off their horses or whatever, or fall off for whatever reason, we may be grabbing some of these guys. Because I want to do those other fiefdoms guys with the tartans, with the cloaks, those rangers. I think what they did, at least what I saw from just the rule book or whatever, is that they took the ranger guys and painted them blue instead of green and brown. The same old Gondor rangers. Now these are older metal rangers, so I think that's going to help me out. It's going to give me a little bit of a difference there. So we're just still. Oh, hey Peter, how's it going? Yeah, thanks. The freehand here is just it's so much fun. Now I can go back in here and maybe get some lighter blues into this because we darkened that up a lot. So when we were sort of reworking our freehand up here, but we'll just get this a little bit lighter here on the other side. There we go. And we can even thin that down again. Get some separation there and there. So to show that those are sort of crossing over. Oh, we'll lighten this up a touch. Again, that's the clear blue. And actually, this for the folks that are watching this, I talk about the shaded base coat technique all the time. And it's been asked, well, was there a special video for shaded base coat? It's kind of in every single video, and so is glazing. And, well, so is freehand and non-metallic metal. So there's not a whole lot of just, oh, look here, we're going to do this one thing. We're going to just paint swords. Or we're just going to paint cloaks. That's kind of not how it works. And I know people are used to that. The thing is, when you divide out things into those smaller pieces, it's sort of like, well, okay, we've given you a spaceship, but it's in pieces. And you've never really dealt with a spaceship before, but now you've got to put this spaceship together. You know how to do the parts. You know how to make an engine. You know how to maybe make a cockpit or guidance system. But you have no idea how to use them all together as a whole. Speaking of which, I need to get some of this almost kind of a sky blue color here onto that sword blade. It's a little bit, we got a lot of light colors on the top, but we need something like this. There we go. And here too, yeah. And we're going to double down on this little bit of a pinkish color here. Get some of that even on his face. We're going to get some here on the cloth. This over here needs something. It needs, and we're just going to go back real quick here too. Let's see. First, are you going to change up the tartan color? I wanted to do actually, I couldn't tell you specific planned tartan names, but I've been trying to research a few things. I also thought that, what if it was, I don't want to say more of a reddish tartan or something like that, something besides just maybe have a little more green into it, because then the guys that have the ranger stuff, they could have some green in them too. I've seen some crazy ones. I've seen ones that are just almost sort of yellow and green. Now we need to get a little more action in this part of our metal here. And remember that those lines I was telling you, let's get a couple of lines in here. Now we will go back to that. It's the sort of the brown liner mix there. With the when you're doing the non-metallic metal stuff, I guess the simplest things to keep in mind. I don't want to say rules and all that kind of stuff, but just thought process. The strong lights and darks next to each other, but that what's the environment? What's around him? What's he standing next to? What's around him? That actually will tell you a whole bunch. And I know I've lampooned the, oh gosh, what is that? The non-metallic metal sets. And I can understand why that people would want those because they say, oh, look, I've got all the colors that I need right here. It's all right here for me. Well, that would be sensational, but what if he was standing on a lava base? What if there's literally, or he's standing on red marble? Well, a set of metallic, whatever paints, if you want to call them that, that's designed for it. Well, let's say like this, where he's walking around on blue marble, they're not going to work so well. It's not going to help you out the way you think. So these are just things that, again, not trying to say don't get those. Well, maybe I am. But think twice about it. Just say, is this where I want to drop my 50, 60 bucks or whatever? Is this really what I want to do? Now, speaking of things we really want to do we want to try and get something else on this shield freehand wise? Well, we've seen some stars there. Maybe this is kind of a navigational thing, but we'll try this. Let's see if we can drop some kind of a design out of this. We're just gonna, it's the same sort of design that was on the other side here, on his other side, on his cloak. So that was kind of fun. How complicated was that? It's basically a little twisty knot. That's all it was. Hey, Gary. We have a Gary in the house. Now, can we make something similar on the other side, but it's got to actually end in a different area? Like, say, here. And then we can do another one of our little star type things here. And I'm going to do something like this because I saw that too on some other freehand things when I was looking through some reference pictures. I was actually really pleasantly surprised at all the different references I was able to find for cool stuff like the freehand on the other side. So let's have that cross over there. It's going to cross over there. So obviously lots of flowing lines here, especially when you look at the freehand design that I had discovered there. It's all about the flow. So let's let that happen. I'll go back over here and see what we can. I need to probably darken that down as much as I'd like to leave it the way it is and have it stand out more. I'm also going to darken down some of, there we go. Need to darken that down, and then here on this helmet, believe it or not, this is going to sound really crazy, but we almost need to do something like this. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Look at this. We're actually trying to reflect each individual little bit of the wing there onto the helmet. If we want it to be that reflective, then we better reflect something on it. So where the heck did he go? Hopefully I've got him back in here. I don't think I have the Captain America figure in here. But with his shield, if you look at that, that's actually the last live session that I did. Yep, I don't see him in here. But what was that? A couple days ago we did him. Super, super bright, shiny shield. Now we got to get some super bright, shiny things here. Get some difference there. And now with their swan again, remember there is no white on the palette yet. No white. Dol Amroth has strong ties to the elves, who hold the stars to be very precious. Yeah, because now on the on the flag of Minas Tirith, obviously you got the white tree of Gondor and that sort of stuff. And there are what seem to be stars there, kind of floating around the tree, I think. All right, I'm gonna go back into my purple. Yeah, that needs to be lightened up. So again, the whole reason why there's pink in this is just to get some difference, to not have this just completely blend into all of our steel colors here. And now we're gonna see how we get that little, the chain of lights that goes from here all the way down through here, through his helmet, even down here into the chest plate. And I think, yeah, our marble does a nice little job here. Let's get some, this is the blue liner again. And all I'm using, like I said before, if you're new here, this is just water that I'm using. We're not doing like we did with the Captain America and some of the other more recent things where we played around with the mediums. We're just going with our more usual, straight up Reaper paints this time around. I'm also going to use this, and we're going to drop a glaze here on the chainmail. I think there's still a bit of my brown liner left. Let's see if I can't give this guy some eyes. Which way is he going to look? Maybe if I just have him looking, if I can't, right at us. I believe the Forge World, the faces were definitely a little bit, well, actually a bit cleaner than on the old metal ones here. Gonna get myself some lines, reinforce that. Now here, there's got to be something to separate that from the cloak, but if it's just blue, that is not going to get separation. If it's too much, then it just look weird. So what we'll do is we'll throw this in, and now we'll do a little bit of wet blending of the glaze. And maybe even snag a touch of the brown liner here. Almost thinking horizon line there. Almost thinking horizon line here. Just trying to sneak that in there. Every so often, it's fun to sneak in a little bit of a horizon line. I'm just going to darken down that here. The other thing, and I mention this all the time, I know it can be repetitive, but with reflections, you want reflections to not be as bright as your lights. It kind of just makes a whole lot of sense when you say it, but saying it is one thing, doing it is actually another. Got to get the other side of the blade here. Not going to put any kind of chips or divots in these blades, but we are going to see if we can't get a little bit more of a, that's going to be too intense. So I'm going to take some of my, that's the mint green there, to tone that down. That's what I'm looking for. Oh, let's get a touch of that in our glove here. And you can see we're thinking a whole chain of lights. We're trying to create that daisy chain of lighter tones here. And sometimes we go back and forth. Like here, I'm going to just Make some of that die down a little. Just tone it down. You have to be willing to make those adjustments. Now here I've got, I'm just going to blend those a little bit, get that a little bit more smooth. And this is the thing that you can do when you have everything basically in place. This is where you start to worry about reflected light, but it's where you also start to maybe smooth some things out too. But you can see we've got this chain of lights, but now we have a chain of reflected lights here that sort of work their way down this way. And now I'm actually going to, and this is for a different type of contrast. This is actually the same blue that I was just using as a light somewhere. Now I'm kind of using it as a mid-tone dark. I will put those here too. So we've got all kinds of fun, different colors at play. We're going to do that on this side too. Let's not forget this side. And I think do the Forge World, the helmets, this aspect of it here was also, I think, in a little bit better shape. I can also maybe snag myself a little bit of white to do some of my very dramatic highlights. Now, where is it? I'm going to look for the bold titanium white. See if I can find that. Nope, that's olive flesh. Here it is. So this is Pro Acryl here. Yeah, bold titanium white. And just throw it over here so we can tell the difference. And the whole point of this is because it's going to really give us some nice heavy-duty coverage, even when it's thinner. And we're going to start here on our shield. Now it is, I don't want to say pointed towards the ground, but it's definitely not pointing straight up at the sky. So as we're adding a little bit of some lights here in our shield. We got some rivets or whatever there. Let's see if we can't get the edge of this real quick. And now we'll definitely hit, there's some obvious places to hit with this right here. And you're not thinking of these as so much as you're drawing lines. It's a little bit like you're putting down these dots of light. It gives it a little spectral effect. Because if it's just one continuous line, see, it's a couple of dots there that's going to make that have a little bit of shininess to it. I'm going to do my brightness here real quick. Now we've got to get into the wings on the helmet here. We're going to add some of this brighter. Well, you can see now that starts to stand out more. We've just been waiting. Wanted to make sure all the other areas had their work in first. We're going to do the same thing right in there. This is one little patch there. So we've got wings on this side of his head. We'll give them a lighter edge here. Now we've got, again, the shoulder here, and we have got to create, again, a chain of lights. We're going to go the other way and then put some darks in here too. It's not all about just lights, lights, lights. And like I said, these are going to be, they're just rougher than, say, the Forge World sculpts. It's just kind of how it goes when you've got metal miniatures that are how old? And these things have got, I think they're 15 years, they're almost 15 years old. I think they said 2005 on them. So that'll give you an indication of how old these sculpts are that we're working with. Not every miniature is the brand new latest release, especially if you're, well, working with a game system that dates back to, well, 2002. It's been around that long, it has survived. Sometimes in spite of GW, not necessarily because of them. Actually, I'd like to think it was really more the players that kept it going. Because it was definitely my favorite system by far. Actually, it was the only one I was still playing at all. And the similarities of bolt action and other games to this is the reason why I started playing those games. I'm going to see if I can't get there right in there. Yeah, a little bit of... That's that reflected light I keep talking about all the time. But it's got to be managed. It can't be lighter than your highlights. It just doesn't make any sense for that to happen. And now here, let's work in. Watch what we're doing there. See a little chain of lights that we just did right there? I'll get my other screen back here so I can make sure that I'm not missing chat things. If you've got any questions, do not ever be shy about asking the questions. Now, there is a delay. I've calculated it to be about 7 seconds or so from the time that maybe you post something in the chat to where I see it. Once again, I'm gonna... We know how light our armor is. We have a pretty good solid idea of that. So now I can maybe go back here into my freehand and my swans. And maybe move those a little bit away from the yellow. But we're also using... We're using that Pro Acryl white, which again is going to be... It's going to cover really well. We just have to be aware of that. We can't do some of the same watercolory type things with this. Here, let's get some of these stars. Just give them a little bit of a brighter interior there. Let's hit this too. We are also going to give ourselves a bit of a lighter skin tone on this, maybe. Let's grab some of that sepia liner, work that in there. I know you can't see too much of the face here. It really is effectively hidden by the armor. But I want to get me some green in there after I work up these lighter skin tones. And I don't need to find a green or anything like that. I got a ton of blue, I got a ton of yellow here. So why if I'm looking for a greenish skin tone, oh look, I've got skin tone, I've got some green. And we're going to hopefully drop some of that right into there. Give him a little bit of a, I don't want to say 5 o'clock shadow necessarily, but I'm also going to use that over here for some mid-tones in our metals. Like here. Yeah, so that separates your shoulder pad there from the rest of the cloak. Okay, looking for whatever this is. Now I can't tell if that's cloak or not, so we're not really, we'll just leave that. We'll just leave it be. But here, another story of needing some reflected light over on this side. And this is where we can maybe smooth some things down. Maybe on his cloak. And there's, I've got the new, what's it, the new Saruman and Grima. Well, those have all kinds of texture in the cloak. So I'm going to see what I can do here. You may not really be able to see this too well. But it's the same kind of interlacing stuff that I did here on the shield. I think you can see that right there. And we'll go over the top of this too. We're going to glaze this down. We're just trying to get the pattern in place first. We're pretty much using palette sludge because palette sludge is one of the greatest colors ever. Second always to faded ultramarine blue, of course. These are just those, it's the suggestion. We'll do that here too. Again, it's just a suggestion of having some kind of a texture on there that's more than just the flat cloak. We will also reflect some of this on his feet. And like I said, I can go back in then and just sort of mellow that out. But not by making it darker, by actually hitting it with a little bit of a lighter glaze. Now let's go. I need to give him some kind of a belt here. It's sort of there. It's not, again, not all of the details are all that super fine. There's some separation with that. Starting to utilize more of the the creature caster slow fuse white there to give me some of that opacity that I need. Work some of that into the glove. Go on to the other side here. Maybe even throw some of that onto these swans. So let's make our picture bigger here and get him up here. So again, we tried to work. This miniature has a whole bunch of folds there in the cloak, and it stretched out a little bit, so we couldn't do everything that we saw in the reference. We had to just manage that. And I think we did okay with that. Now those army painting videos that I was talking about, one of the things that is discussed in every single episode, no matter whether it's the first one, the second one, the fourth, the fifth, whatever, it's all about the currency of time. How much time do you have to execute, well, like this marble base that we did? That just took a matter of a few minutes. This freehand here, is this something that we would want to do on every single one, or is it something, well, we just stick with captains, with Prince Imrahil? We don't go crazy and do this on every single one in the army. So So now I've got my, again, my white here, which means I can make some of these highlights a little bit more intense. Yeah, we need some here too. Out on the edge of this sword blade. And you notice it's not a continuous light. Even there, it has a little bit of a break to it. Yeah, I'm so tempted to try and get more light in on his face, but so again, another linear light. Think of these things down here in the lower right-hand corner, those helmets there. So you can see we're trying to get work in a little bit of that red into the helmet color too. Let's see what I can do to maybe get some lighter skin tones on his nose, chin. I just don't think we can get at those cheeks too much. Don't want those to get too bright. That's going to have to be enough there. Our swan here, again, there's an awful lot of light colors here. Now, on this little linear thing here, we got that, remember about that chain of lights, chain of darks. There's too much dark there. We got to do something about that. Kind of have a bit of a purple here. That tones that down a little bit. It's not quite such a stark difference. Now I still got my blue. Here I can maybe, let's see what we can do on our shield here a bit. And it's all about, remember we put the design in there and then we can clean up after the fact. We can even, see, I can get some blue down here and just make, again, some little alterations to our design there. It gives it a little bit more of a delicate look. Because that's usually, boy, with freehand, there's that whole desire of just wanting to beat people in the face and say, look, freehand. Hence the 40-foot tall and 700-pound banners that have basically an illustrated Bible on them or something like that. That's fantastic. It's just, if it's part of some kind of a diorama or whatever, yes, but on individual figures, I kind of not want to. And I know I've been tempted to do the gigantic banners of doom like that. It's very tempting to want to just show off what you can do. Oh, let's get a sharper horizon line here. Something that, remember I was telling earlier that story about the person where I just had to get some darks in there? Well, it was kind of the same thing happening here. We've been adding in lots of middle tones, lots of lights, but it also kind of needed some dark. Now, I don't think, yeah, we won't mess with put any more lights there. Let's see if we can't work in some of this purple color into here. Get down into these recessed areas. Because if it's all it is just a darker gray, bluish gray than what's already there, it really does start to look kind of boring. Then out here, I'm going to use that same very watery purple mix. Let's get, I think we want to have some smoother elements here. You can see I'm using that to also tone down that little hint of a pattern that we brushed into our cloak there. The glove has some reflected light. Obviously not going to be as much as the steel. But yes, clothes still catch reflected light. That needs to be lighter, which means that does, which means this does. Right, you can see how that's sort of semi-transparent, but the more of the pro acrylic stuff we put in there, the whole point of putting that stuff in there was to get things to be more opaque and cover more. So you always have to be aware. It's just like when you're working with the oils and you have to be aware that, oh yeah, my paint's a little bit thinner here, so I have to work thicker if I want it to stick. And I've been working on a whole bunch of figures with oils. Again, getting ready for another oil painting series. So here's it's a War Cry figure actually. So this was done in oils, and we're, like I said, we're just getting ready to do more oil painting. I'm just grab me a drink here real quick. And yeah, sorry I couldn't turn off the mic. My hands are kind of full. Just like I've done in a few other places here. Let's get some of those bright kind of spectral highlight things that happen. But here I can see I've actually got to reinforce some darks. And especially here with these older metal figures. Sometimes I don't want to say you have to paint in the detail. Oh, hey Will, how's it going? So yeah, we've been at this since 2:30-ish. So what are we at here? We're at 1 hour 47 minutes. Yeah, because what are we at? We're close to 2 hours in. But we definitely used the big old brushes for sure for quite a while. Because we were adding, well, even the initial freehand design here, that was painted with the bigger brush too. And once we felt like we had that pretty much down pat, then we went in with our smaller brushes, brought out some more details. Speaking of which, we are, what I want to do on the other side of this, there's a little suggestion of that. See, there's a bit of a suggestion of a line. Trying to work in some reflected light there. This needs to be lighter in here too, but I think I need it to be more of a sky color, like so. We need to do a similar thing over here. That's that mint green from Reaper. Drop that right in there, and this also needs some reinforcement. We got even lighter there. So I will gonna go with a little bit of the, again, the Pro Acryl white, just to make sure that it has the opacity to cover. And the base, that was just a big old hefty piece of Sculpey. And there was a little bit of strategy behind that too. Because when you got a figure like this and they're metal, they're obviously going to maybe want to tip over, become gravitationally challenged. And that's the nifty thing about having especially a thick piece of Sculpey like that. It weighs it down, holds it in place. Yeah, you could do this thing with washers or something like that, but then it's kind of difficult to get my magnets in there. So that's what I like to do. Use a big old hefty piece of metal or the Sculpey there to balance off my metal. There's a Oh, I got the Dunlendings in. Yeah, that's the other thing. Now those are some more old metal miniatures, but they kind of have the Viking vibe to them, even more Nordic than say the Rohan figs. That's going to be another one of my evil armies. I'll be running them with Saruman and Grima. Yeah, so I get that chain. See that we've that successful chain of lights just runs all the way down. Oh, let's try a touch more here, like you do. Here's another area that sort of got skipped. We're going to hit that with some of our, again, that Pro Acryl white. We've got a whole nice set of opposing colors here. We got some pinks in there, some greens. And I'm going to want some of that here too, to just create as many. See, we got sort of a mid-tone, like then we have your lighter here, and then back to a mid-tone over here, and now create something a little bit different over here. This needs, I don't know if it needs necessarily a super bright light, but it definitely needs right here. That's not coming forward, it's just sort of sitting flat right there. In some ways, it's almost like you have to think like I did when I painted in 2 dimensions for so long, just regular 2D art. You have to think, well, how do I show turn? Because sometimes these guys are small enough to where that turn just doesn't show, especially when you're trying to do something like a non-metallic technique, where sometimes you have to really emphasize the shape because the darn thing's just so small. Here, let's get suggestion of some light right in here. That's good. Oh, I'm going to take some of my blue in here. And I'm just going to, it's sort of a dry glaze that we're putting there. Yeah, it just needed to be darker. Now I'm actually going to see if I can get a little bit more of an intense pink in here. I know it sounds crazy with the sword blades. There we go. Needed that. We need some over here too. I know it's tough to see, but it is definitely there. And I'll put some of that on the helmet wings here. It is only a suggestion, that's all. When people see that, they're not going to look at it and go, oh yeah, pink. Oh, let's see. Will asked, do you get the top so flat by using a plain rolled Sculpey? It's just the plain old rolled Sculpey. Now what you can do is press it down and you use the side that was, because I baked these on a tile, on a ceramic tile, and that's a totally smooth ceramic tile. Well, then you've got yourself a nice smooth Sculpey finish. You could potentially sand your Sculpey down, I guess, if you wanted to. That's possible. But sometimes it's fun to actually have a tile that's got some texture to it, and you actually roll out your Scopy on that, and you actually then transfer a little bit of that texture from the tile to your Scopy. Okay, this also needs, see that little chain of lighter stuff that we just added right there? And a little bit of the Pro Acryl white light here. Another chain of, see, 1, 2, 3. Here, let's hit that again. And then even here on his feet. But now we're going to go into our blue. And yeah, you can't. I can't hardly see it. So my face might be smashing into the camera here. I apologize for that. But I'm trying to get a little bit of my blue to reflect here into my metal. That needs to be a little lighter. We'll do that again. Some more. I think this is, yeah, it is part of his cloak. Okay. Then I'm going to get the edge of, here, get the edge of this. Now, if you're new to this, seeing this for the first time, I have tons of these live sessions. They generally happen every 2 to 4 days. And if you want to get the notifications for these things, as I realized the hard way myself, you have to not just click on subscribe, but I guess do the all notifications thing. Because I would subscribe to folks and go, well, wait a minute. This video is weeks old. How did I not see this? I thought I subscribed. But yeah, you have to do the subscribe and the notification bell. So once again, adding more of the blue in there to reflect our marble, but I also want to, I can move this to so you can see it. I'm just trying to pick, there we go, just a little bit of a light. Again, another chain of lights. I know it sounds, well, it is Christmas time after all. Now let's do the same thing on the interior surface here. I don't know, I guess you can see a little bit of that. We've got a couple of belt type things working there. See, there's another edge. Speaking of our Pro Acryl white, that's better. Somehow, completely forgot about that. Not sure. So yeah, you can see how thick this piece of scope is. That is probably 4 to 5 times as thick as the usual Sculpey, because especially the white stuff, the white regular Sculpey, that gets, well, rolled out in a pasta machine. Yeah, clay extruders, just pasta machines. That's all they are, which is why they come with recipes. I have a ton of basing videos now. The vast majority are on the Patreon page, but there are some basing videos here. There's even one generic one that just talks about how to bake your Sculpey. And I always suggest, well, strongly recommend that you bake your Sculpey on a ceramic tile, because metal pans have a tendency to bend when they heat and contract and expand and all that. And you can also transfer the flavor of your Sculpey to that pan. So if you're wanting to use that for, well, I don't know, holiday cookies like us, best not to be using a pan that's got Sculpey residue in it. Actually, if you don't want to mess around with your oven, you can use, what are those things? The little electric stoves there. Well, yeah, but the electric ovens, we've got one of those. And we have some time, especially in the summertime, we've baked Sculpey in that because, well, no sense heating up the house in the summertime as you're trying to cool it. So once again, yeah, that needs another. And this too, when you have these little ridge lines on the shoulder pads there, you have to sort of. Here, let's get the dark back up in right there. But you have to kind of fool around with those. See, it gets a little bit lighter down there. Now maybe we're also going to indicate some lights over here. Just like we did on the helmet here. Look at that. See, it's that continuous chain of lights. Oh, much appreciated. I hope that these little things that maybe you don't include all of them. Maybe there's just one little thing that you incorporate into your own technique that you're seeing here. I suppose you could just look at it, it's one more than you had before. Now I have to do something here too. That's looking a little not quite the way I want it to be there. So I'm going to actually make that darker there. Going to go in with a more of a mid-tone here now. And I just had to, there was too many things going on there. Just too much variety. Sometimes too much variety can be too much. So I got my clear blue again. I actually grab some of that clear phthalo blue. Let's see what I can do on the shield here. All right. So this is just, it's more of a reddish blue. Like I said, there's that cobalt blue. I'm also going to mess with the contrast a little bit here. Because there's so many different white next to white. So many light colors next to each other. That if I reduce the contrast a bit, make that easier for you to see. I'm going to flip this around here, and now it's time to get the lightest colors on the folds in the blue here. Which remember, we start out with using that big old brush. And just sort of block those in. Then they got a little bit covered when we did our freehand pattern. I'm going to bring back the chat there. Oh, well, thank you very much. It's much appreciated. I still can't believe that I was shortchanging myself about 100 hours worth of content there. Thinking it was 150 and when it's really more like 250. That's a whole bunch of videos. They tend to be a little bit like this one. So where are we at here? 2.5 hours in? Well, we're 2 hours, 4 minutes in. And the videos average somewhere between 2 hours. There's a few long ones that are 3 hours. That's where I'm painting a vehicle or something really in a much larger scale than, say, this guy here. I also have some creature caster stuff. Now those, when they're a big critter, I'll break it down into anywhere between 2 to 3 episodes. Yeah, see how that kind of morphed into something that's a little bit more of a blue right there because it's pointed down at our cloth here. Let's see if I can't go just one shade lighter. And this is, again, more of a reddish blue, whereas on the armor we've used more of a cyan. That's more of a greenish blue. I'm going to get, yeah, I'll get some of that into my helmet there. And I'm going to trying to get a little bit away from the blue liner that's there, and even here right next to the wing, I'm trying to get a little less of a dark in here. That's it. There was so much, there was kind of a super contrast there, and it just was showing up a little too much. We will do the same here, even though it is a fold, just like with the armor. There we go. We needed some kind of blue in there. It didn't have to be very light. It's just a mid-tone. Just a mid-tone. And there's going to be more things added as I get more equipment. Aside from being able to do that evening with the Wapples, if I can get that other machine, that would let me do terrain videos. And the other thing that came in yesterday, maybe it was the Rohan building. And I just got one of those because what I want to do is use that one building as a scale reference and then show you how to use materials that, well, let's just say cost a whole lot less than those buildings so that you could actually make an entire Rohan town without having to spend your entire life savings. But that it just requires, again, I have to have a whole nother machine because it's got to be a whole different setup. There is no way I can do that with my basing setup or this. I'm actually going to go back into my yield sepia liner here and see if I can. That's going to be too much. I need a little bit thinner than that. I'm trying to just put a little bit of texture into the wings there. So instead of it just being a single stroke of color, there we go. That's what I need. It's just a matter of toning that down, which we're going to do here too. Yeah, so we've got ourselves a little... Yeah, that's better. Oh, what about on this side? Are we doing that over here? Don't know. So I know that mostly stuff like this trim is just pretty much shown as being white when you look at all of the GW stuff, but we are trying to go well beyond that. Now, do I need to... Yeah, I'm going to have to go into my blue liner again. Again, just using water. I need to, like I talked about with these older sculpts, sometimes you have to really help reinforce some of the edges and the detail. It's just kind of how it is. We will do the same thing here. The helmet, gotta figure out, like right here, I don't know if you can see what I just added there. Let's see, I want to, not even sure you can see what I did there. Just a separation between the face and the mask, the helmet. We'll go back into our Pro Curl White here, see if we can get these three. There we go. Now I can actually see those. They were, like I said, I think the Forge World shields, you'll that'll be a much easier task. I won't have to be painting quite so much of the details there. But I do think this has a lot more from the original, the old Prince Imrahil. And it's funny as I look at that, I say there's parts that are just only just the initial glaze. There's parts of that that are missing a lot of additional details. But that's kind of what I knew back in 2010, 2011, whatever that was, however long ago. You learn things. At least hopefully you do. Oh, Evil Elvis. Yeah, we've been at this now 2 hours, 10 minutes. This is the new, well, one of several new Lord of the Rings armies that we're working on. It's basically it's a color test of a color test. How's that sound? Because I do believe this is a series that I like to take on in oils. But first, I just want to get this down. Not all of them necessarily will be done in oils, because it's also fun to see. And I did this with the Dark Sword videos intentionally, where some of them I take the exact same figure and paint it in oils. One that I painted with acrylics and the same color scheme, everything's the same. It's just one is oils, one is acrylic. Because I know that, well, I did that in response to folks that say, oh, well, you're trying to get a different effect. You're using oils because you want it to look different. I said, no, that's not the point at all. I don't want it to look any different. I want it to look just like anything I would paint with acrylics. I do want there. See, there's just a tiny touch of dark there that makes that, because I couldn't make that light any lighter, but I could make the stuff around it darker, which just makes a huge difference. Let's see if we can find some. Need to get a little more maybe separation in our sword blade here. And we're at the very end of it here. Yep. And this is not black at all. This is just, it's blue liner. If I wanted to make it even darker, I could. I would just add some of the brown liner to it, and that would do the trick. But you can see how that starts to look a little bit bolder now. But it's still broken there. It's not 100% straight. It's another way you can kind of represent maybe some sort of chipping or whatever. Because he just was bopping on an orc or something, or heaven forbid an Easterling's armor. We're just gonna work in some, get some more darks here. But I also now, in this chainmail here, gotta go with some lights. Gotta get some light sparkly things here on this chainmail. The Forge World chainmail, I believe, would be easier to paint than this because it's most likely digital sculpted. Whereas here, if you've ever tried to sculpt chainmail, you're sort of pushing the tool in there. And you're trying to get those alternating bands of the notches or whatever, but it can be hard by hand. Yeah, and adding more of these little points of light. We need one right there for sure. You can see that, but it's not just, it's got some red in it too. It's not just blues, even though we're trying to reflect our marble color. Speaking of which, we are back down here again. Let's see if I can get the interior here. Yeah. And then I want to get some, just a touch of my dark blue in there. That's all. Oh, that I was tempted to mess with the cloak there, but you know what? The more I spin this around, the less I even see anything there, so I won't mess with that. Let's see if I can get something to happen here with our gold. So that's again, the Pro Acryl white. That's with some of the clear yellow. And even maybe here, I might just mess with some of this. Yeah. Then I'll obviously go on the other side, see maybe if the freehand gets a little bit of this. I'm going to see if I can't get a few little lines. There, it starts to break up that shape a little bit. See, now it looks a little bit more like feathers there. I'll do that again. Want to get some light where their faces are there too. And now, yeah. I know people say, so this is where you just do the light stuff, or this is where you just do the glazing. No, we go back and forth. We glaze. We add darks. We add lights. Because sometimes when you change one thing, that means, well, maybe you should probably change other things too. So that, again, that I got to add something in there. I'm going to see what happens if I go with this type of blue. It's right here on the helmet. Yeah. Okay, good. That is what and maybe we'll go a little touch lighter. On that. Oh, hey, Engineered to Draw. How's it going? Yeah, that was something that I found. I was really surprised to find it. Pleasantly surprised. I just didn't think I thought all I would see is just a sea of weirdly painted Dol Amroth from Games Workshop. Just nothing but blue and white. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, what revealed itself was some of these really nifty things, I guess, from the Lord of the Rings online game. So there's other reference pictures that I snagged that I don't have on here that I may be able to say on some banners, be able to add some more dramatic stuff. Alrighty. Looking to do some of that reflected light right in there. And you can see, yeah, see right here on this helmet, a little chain of these things. They're reflecting the wings. Same on the other side. But maybe I'm going to get a little bit of the blue into this. It's sort of the reverse reflection here. Things just bouncing off of each other as much as possible. We'll go back into that straight up titanium white. Get that line of highlights to stand out. That chain. So we're doing that here on his arm. We've got these wings that we have to there. Now that's all just, there's too much dark as I look at this. There's nothing reflect. That's already better. We got to do it again now. Oh, what the heck? I'll go with some of this green here. That's better. Oh, yeah. That was just literally nothing but flat black right there. That had a whole lot of nothing going on. I think I still need to get some more light in there. Yeah, trying to reflect again some of these, whatever that is part of his shoulder that's there. And I realize that some of this stuff just kind of looks maybe like white. Cameras don't necessarily like things that have just a whole bunch of light colors right next to each other. And then there's also a bunch of dark colors too, all sort of in the same thing. I will get one last light edge. And under here, maybe again, indicate that there's some sort of a pattern here, but not very much. What the heck, dude? This is what I mean about the crazy ancient GW figure here. I'm going to just see if I can't get some brown liner and blue liner to make a dark here. That's better. Yeah, there's just a big old hunk of metal sitting there. Oh, let's see. Wasted hours playing that game. How quick you get to a good looking mention. Well, it's if you want to get those armies out there and get them out there fighting. It really that's why I developed the whole shaded base coat thing. All of that was because I had hundreds of skinks that needed to be painted in different colors too. It wasn't hundreds of the same. Each unit was a different color because that's just how we roll. Yeah, his nose needed a little bit of upper part of his lip. Yeah, so I was able to sneak some greens there into the skin tone. Yeah, what I like about this is that there's not a whole lot of automatic results. There's no unit killing spells. Actually, magic is very minimal in this. And it's, I don't want to say, well, I guess it is sort of easier to resist it. That the shooting, not so dominant. And there's so many of the different heroic actions and such. You can't do all the stuff that you want to do. There's no way. You have to make hard choices. And the way you can construct your warbands is also pretty unique, and there are a whole bunch of scenarios. And you can't, if you do the min-maxing and all that kind of stuff, you can end up with a scenario that's going to make that very miserable for you. You're sort of, now unless you're doing a narrative thing or whatever, you definitely want to have something that's for take-all-comers. So it is now, well, let's see, now it's 4:45, so I'm going to thank everybody that was in the stream. Gary, first, last, well, engineered the draw, and Black's Cleric. Thank you so much again for the on Eva Elvis, but thanks so much for subscribing. It really helps and will. And there's first, last, and Gary. Oh, and miniatures, conversions, and dioramas. Chris, too, and Fruity Toots, and Jack. I appreciate everybody that watches these things. You can always watch these from the beginning. You can always go back, watch them from the beginning. But I will catch you certainly at least one more time before Christmas, maybe twice. Thanks, everybody, and I will catch you on the next episode. We'll try some more freehand, maybe.